The first thing that you have to be willing to break up with is you have to break up with fairy tales. See, when a gardener begins to prune the garden, water the garden, weed the gardener is pruning with a vision in mind. That which he presently have does not exist yet. He has a mental image of what could be. He has a vision for what is. Every one of us in this room, we need to see our life like a garden. And we need to realize that when it comes to our relationships, we need to get a positive vision of what could be and what should be. You need to ask yourself the real questions. How do you want to speak to your friends? How do you want your friends to speak to you? How do you want to behave towards your spouse? How do you want your spouse to behave towards you? What's a valid disagreement? What's an invalid disagreement? What makes us mad? What makes us sad? You need to define these things. These are just the starting questions, but these questions are designed to prompt you to create a vision of what could be for your life. Yet if we're being honest tonight, what happens to so many of us in this room, we never had a model. We never had a positive picture. We never had a healthy vision of what a relationship should look like. And there's lots of reasons for this. Maybe you grew up in a home that your parents got divorced, they split apart. Maybe you grew up in a home that your parents, they were married, but they were miserable. Maybe you grew up in a home that people were allowed to hit one another, and physical abuse is just part of your narrative. Maybe you grew up in a home where when people got upset and when people got frustrated, they thought it was okay to verbally abuse one another. Maybe your entire life, what you watched in your home was that when people got stressed out and when people couldn't discover the answers and when people got frustrated, what they would do is they would self-medicate. So they'd go to the bottle or they'd check in some pills or they'd smoke something, and all of it was to mask what was going on. Maybe you watched two codependent people that were toxic. Maybe you watched your entire life people neglect one another and people abandon each other. Here's the point, whatever you watched is what you learned. Sometimes churches, we talk so much about generational curses. Yet sometimes a generational curse is nothing more than what you watched, because what you watched is what you learned. And everything about your relationships, whether you know it or not, is learned behavior. So what happens to us on the journey is we all of a sudden come to this place as we grow up that we become self-aware enough to say, I'll tell you one thing, I don't want to be my dad. I'll tell you one thing, I'm not going to be like my mom. I don't want that relationship. That was not good. Yet I'm still stuck with this problem and I still have this hurdle, because how do I create that which I've never witnessed? And how do I make something that I've never seen before? And so what happens, we don't even know it, but by default, we start searching for a reference. We start searching for an image. We start looking for a positive mental picture of what a good relationship looked like. And the truth is, the only other thing that we watched is we watched fairy tales as kids. So we think our marriages and our relationships should look like fairy tales. And I'm not against fairy tales, but they're not real. Like fairy tales, they always end going, and they lived happily ever after. And what it does to us, we don't even realize it, but it kind of makes us feel like relationships are one and done. Like one struggle accomplished, now the story's good. One battle down, and guess what? Now I'm living my best life. Yet happily ever after is not a destination. Happily ever after is a journey. Relationships don't end in happiness, they start in happiness. Fairy tales sell you that all of a sudden happiness is at the finish line, but a healthy relationship based upon a healthy vision will tell you it doesn't matter the season, it doesn't matter the hour, it doesn't matter the terrain. You can discover happiness every step of the way. Choose to be happy first. So many of us in this room, the picture for our relationships are based on Disney movies. So happiness is always in the distance. And peace in the home is always in the distance. I see this happen like in church so much. Over and over again, you see the fairy tale complex, you see the fairy tale vision show up, and people, they learn what they watch. What are fairy tales all about? Fairy tales are all about Prince Charming rescuing a princess who needs to be saved. It's wild because people keep picking partners that they need to rescue. Word to the wise, don't marry someone who needs to be saved. You marry someone who's already standing on both of their feet, complete, whole. Oh, my God. You're gonna make me work. Like, listen to me. You choose stock based upon its potential. You choose a spouse based upon their patterns. You don't marry someone based upon potential, what they could become, who they might be. You're not Jesus. You're not called to save your partner. You're called to walk with your partner. But you don't know him. I know the real him. I know his heart. He's full of good intentions. Yo, he's cheated on you 3 times. You have a fairy tale vision for a relationship. You don't understand, when I'm alone with her, I know the real her. She loves me, she's for me. Dog, she is verbally abusing you. And you don't see it, but everyone else around you sees it, that you are losing every bit of security day by day you stay with her. You have no more confidence, and you're gonna need that confidence if you're ever gonna walk into your calling. You don't need to marry her. What I want you to see is if you don't break up with fairy tales will break you down. See, fairy tales, what they sell us is they sell us that love happens in first sight. I saw her and I fell in love with her. Prince Charming, Sleeping Beauty. Maybe that's your story, but that's risky stuff. Fairy tales, we don't know, but what we watched is what we learned, and what we learned is that we pay more attention to the exterior than we do the interior. You fell in love with her at first sight? Did you ever think you might need to have a conversation? You don't know what he believes. You don't know how she behaves under pressure. You don't know his credit score. I know people in this church who have never had a healthy relationship in their entire life. And Dawn Shree and I try to do matchmaking, and we'll say, why don't you let this person take you out to coffee? And based upon a photograph, a freaking picture, they won't even go to coffee. Now, I understand that attraction matters. I understand you need to like them physically. Yes, I get it. But have you ever considered that attraction occurs through conversation? Can I help some people up here tonight? Danny, have you ever thought about that you might like her more the longer you get to know her? That maybe Instagram can't tell you what's on the inside of her, but you can only find that out through a real conversation. You don't know it, but you believe in fairy tales. And if you don't break up with fairy tales are gonna break you down. Like, have you ever considered that we're all fighting gravity? Think about it. And we're losing. We're all dying a slow death. And Prince Charming isn't gonna look like Prince Charming forever. Meet girls talking like, I just want tall, dark, and handsome. If I were you, I'd break up with that notion. I would settle for trustworthy, determined, and honest. The fairy tale vision keeps reducing us to exterior things. Some of you, your marriage, the reason why you're so frustrated in your marriage, the reason why you're on the rocks tonight in your marriage is because you don't know it, but you're measuring your spouse up against a fictional cartoon character. And they can't win. It's a fairy tale. You need to resolve in your heart tonight that I'm getting a healthy vision. I'm getting a positive image. I'm basing my relationship upon God's word. I'm breaking up with fairy tales so fairy tales don't break me down.